Commander Cole stood at the back of the medical chamber, trying to make himself invisible. This was not difficult. Among the tall, glowing figures of the court, a human was easy to overlook. They were too worried about their princess to notice one small alien diplomat standing in the shadows. They were beautiful in a way that made uncomfortable. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, with bodies that seemed made of living light. Their skin was pale and soft like moth wings, and patterns of bioluminescence moved across their faces like slow rivers of gold and silver. They had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. Humans had only been in space for 300. Was here as part of a minor diplomatic mission. Humanity wanted trade agreements. They wanted to study the strange new species that had appeared so suddenly among the stars. Neither side expected much from the arrangement. Certainly never expected to witness a princess dying. Princess lay in a healing pod at the center of the chamber. Her light was fading. Where the other blazed with inner fire, she flickered like a candle in wind. The physicians surrounded her, their hands moving in complex patterns as they tried to weave light into her failing body. Nothing worked. Had read about medicine during his training. It was considered the most advanced healing art in the known galaxy. They used light and sound and resonance to heal. Their techniques could cure diseases that human doctors could not even name. But all of it required one thing, the patient's own bioluminescence. The light had to meet light. The body had to participate in its own healing. Princess could not participate. Something was eating her light from the inside. A parasitic organism had attached itself to her neural crown, the cluster of light-producing organs that sat at the base of every skull. No one knew where it came from. Some said it escaped from a quarantined world. Others whispered about assassination. But the source did not matter now. What mattered was that the parasite was winning, and the princess was dying, and the greatest medical minds of an ancient empire could do nothing but watch. Found himself moving closer. He should not have. Humans were barely tolerated in the palace. They were considered primitive, violent, useful only for their strange inventions and their willingness to go places that more sensible species avoided. A human had no business approaching a royal healing chamber. But something about the parasite caught his attention. The way it moved beneath the princess's skin, the pattern of its feeding, the rhythm of its pulses as it drained her light. He had seen something like this before. Not here, not in space. Back on Earth in a jungle in South America during his medical training. A parasitic worm that attached to the brain stems of monkeys. It fed on neural electricity the same way this thing fed on bioluminescence. Different energy source, same behavior. Felt his heart begin to race. He knew how to kill that worm. The treatment was crude by standards. It involved electricity and cutting and chemicals that burned. It was the kind of medicine that humans had developed over centuries of desperation, when people were dying and there was no time for elegance. It was ugly, but it worked. He looked at the princess. Her light flickered again, weaker now. The physicians were arguing among themselves, their musical voices rising in distress. They were running out of options. They were running out of time. Thought about protocol. He thought about the laws of the empire which said that no outsider could touch royalty without permission. He thought about what would happen to him if he acted. Execution, probably. Humans had been killed for less. He thought about his daughter Emma back on Earth. She was 12 years old. He had left her with her grandmother when he took this posting. He had promised to come home. The princess made a sound. It was soft, barely audible, but heard it. It was the sound of someone losing hope. He stopped thinking. Pushed through the crowd of courtiers before his fear could catch up with him. They were so surprised that they simply parted before him like water around a stone. He reached the healing pod and looked down at the princess. Up close, she was younger than he expected. Despite her size, despite the alien features, there was something in her face that reminded him of Emma, a child. She was still just a child. The guards realized what was happening. He heard their ceremonial blades humming to life behind him. He heard the courtiers shrieking in their subsonic voices. He had maybe 60 seconds before they reached him. He needed 40. Opened his field kit with hands that did not shake. Later, he would wonder how he stayed so calm. In the moment, there was no room for fear. There was only the work. He found his neural probe and modified it on the spot, adjusting the frequency to match what he remembered from his training. He found his surgical laser, the one meant for human flesh, and hoped it would work on tissue. He found his chemical kit and mixed a solution that would burn the parasite without killing the host. The princess's eyes opened. They were huge, multifaceted like an insect's, but there was intelligence in them. Fear. She saw the human standing over her with strange metal tools, and she was afraid. "I am sorry," said. He did not know if she could understand him. "This is going to hurt, but you are going to live." He made the first cut. The scream from the courtiers was deafening. The guards were almost on him. He could feel the heat of a plasma blade near his neck, but he did not stop. He could not stop. The parasite fought back. It thrashed and pulsed and tried to dig deeper into the princess's neural crown. Hit it with the electrical probe and it convulsed. He hit it again. He grabbed it with forceps designed for human surgery and pulled. The thing came free with a wet, terrible sound. It dissolved in the open air, falling apart into ash and darkness. Princess gasped. Her light flickered, sputtered, and then exploded outward in a wave of gold and silver that filled the entire chamber. She was alive. She was going to be fine. Let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Then strong hands grabbed him from behind and forced him to his knees. He did not resist. He had done what he needed to do. Whatever came next, he would accept it. The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to the throne at the far end of the room, where Queen the Undying was rising to her feet. Her light was so intense that had to close his eyes against it. He felt her approach like heat from a fire. "This one," the Queen said. Her voice was cold and ancient and carried the weight of 10,000 years. "This one is mine now. By the old laws, by blood debt and crown right, he is seized." Did not understand what that meant, but from the way the courtiers gasped, he knew it was not what anyone expected. He had saved the princess. Now he belonged to the Queen. The guards did not take to a prison cell. This surprised him. He had expected chains, darkness, perhaps a quick execution in some forgotten corner of the palace. Instead, they led him through corridors of singing crystal to a chamber that made him stop and stare. The room was larger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The walls were made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. The furniture seemed to grow from the floor itself, reshaping as he watched to fit his smaller human body. A window covered one entire wall, showing a view of the stellar nursery outside. Clouds of gas and dust where new stars were being born in explosions of color. The guards left him there without a word. The door sealed behind them and was alone. He stood in the middle of the room for a long time, waiting for something to happen. When nothing did, he sat down on one of the strange chairs and tried to understand his situation. He had saved the princess. The Queen had claimed him. He was not dead. Beyond that, he knew nothing. The first visitor came the next morning. A tall male with patterns of deep purple light across his face. He introduced himself as Lord, Advisor to the Crown. His voice was polite. His eyes were not. "Do you understand what has happened to you?" asked. "No," admitted. "The Queen has invoked the seizure. It is an ancient law older than this dynasty. When a being of lower caste saves the life of royalty through extraordinary means, they become property of the crown." Pause to let this sink in. You are not a prisoner. You are not a slave. You are something else. Something that has no name in your language. Felt cold despite the warm light of the room. What does that mean? What happens to me now? That is for the Queen to decide. The expression showed something that might have been discussed. The seizure was designed for saving other. It was never meant for your kind. You have created a problem that has no easy solution. I saved her life. Yes, through butchery, through violation. You cut into a princess of the blood with metal tools and electricity. Light flickered with emotion. Do you have any idea what you looked like to us? What you did was barbarism, savagery, the kind of thing we tell our children about to frighten them. Thought about this, but she is alive. Had no answer for that. He left shortly after, promising to return with more information. Was left alone again with his thoughts and the view of dying stars. The days that followed were strange. Servants came and went, bringing food that had been carefully prepared for human digestion. They were curious about him, stealing glances when they thought he was not looking. One young servant, barely more than a child, asked him what Earth was like, told her about oceans and forests and cities that did not glow. She listened with wide eyes as if he were describing a fairy tale. Lord returned several times, always with questions. What was human medicine? How did it work? Why was it so violent? Tried to explain, but the concepts did not translate well. Medicine was about harmony, about working with the body. Human medicine was about war, fighting disease, cutting out infection, killing what was trying to kill you. The found this disturbing. You treat the body as a battlefield, said once. We treat it as something worth fighting for, replied. On the 5th day, Princess came to see him. She entered his chamber without warning, her light filling the room like sunrise. Up close, without the fog of emergency and fear, could see how young she was. In human terms, she might have been 16 or 17. Still a child by standards where people lived for centuries. You are the human who saved me, she said. Her voice was musical, curious, without the coldness that had heard from other. Yes. She studied him with her strange insect eyes. Why? The question surprised him. Because you were dying. Many have died in this palace. You did not save them. I did not know how to save them. I knew how to save you, hesitated. Or I thought I did. I was not certain it would work. Human medicine and biology are very different. But you tried anyway, even though you might have failed, even though you knew what would happen to you. Moved closer, her light washing over him. My physicians say that what you did was impossible. No one outside our species has ever performed surgery on and succeeded. They say you should have killed me. I almost did, admitted. There were moments when I was not sure, but I had to try. Why? He thought about the question for a long time. Where I come from, we do not ask why. We do not have time. People are sick and we try to heal them. People are dying and we try to save them. Sometimes we fail. Often we fail. But we never stop trying. That is what being human means. Was silent for a while. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Tell me about human medicine. Tell me how your people learned to heal. So told her. He told her about the ancient doctors who cut open the dead to learn how bodies worked. He told her about the plagues that killed millions while humans desperately searched for cures. He told her about war and how the need to save wounded soldiers drove medical innovation. He told her about trial and error, about medicines that killed before they healed, about the long, bloody history of humans fighting against death with every tool they could create. Your medicine is built from suffering, said when he finished. Yes, and from hope. We suffer and we hope and we keep going. That is all we know how to do. The princess visited him every day after that. She asked endless questions about Earth, about humans, about the strange creatures who had stumbled into the galaxy and refused to be ignored. Found himself looking forward to her visits. She was intelligent and curious and treated him like a person rather than a problem. But outside his comfortable prison, the empire was in chaos. Lord brought news of factions forming, nobles choosing sides, arguments raging in the court about what should be done with the human who had committed sacred violation and miraculous salvation in the same breath. Some want you dead, told him. They say your survival makes a mockery of our laws. And the others? The others see opportunity. Humans are new to the galaxy. Your people are strange and aggressive and surprisingly capable. Some believe an alliance with your species could benefit the Empire. The expression was unreadable. And some simply do not know what to think. You have done something that should not be possible. You have forced us to reconsider what we believe about the universe. On the seventh night came to with news. Tomorrow you will stand before the full court, she said. My mother will render judgment. Felt his stomach tighten. What will she decide? I do not know. The queen is old, older than anyone alive. She has seen things that the rest of us cannot imagine. She does not think like other. Paused, and her light flickered with an emotion could not name. I spoke to her about you. I told her what you did, what you are. What did she say? She said that sometimes the universe sends exactly what is needed, wearing the most unexpected face. Reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were cool and smooth, and light seemed to flow from her touch into his skin. Prepare yourself, coal of earth. Whatever happens tomorrow, it will change everything. She left him alone with the stars and his fear, and a tiny spark of something that might have been hope. The throne room of the Empire was the most beautiful place had ever seen. It was also the most terrifying. The chamber stretched upward beyond sight, a cathedral of living crystal that had been grown over thousands of years. Every surface pulsed with soft light. The walls sang with harmonics that made bones vibrate. And filling every available space were the nobles of the Empire, hundreds of in their finest ceremonial glow, their combined light bright enough to hurt human eyes. Stood alone in the center of the floor. He wore the same clothes he had been wearing when he was seized, a simple human diplomatic uniform, stained now with the blood of an alien princess. The guards had offered him new clothing. He had refused. He wanted the court to see exactly what he was, a human who had done an impossible thing. Queen sat on a throne that seemed carved from a single piece of crystal. She was larger than any other had seen, her form ancient and terrible and beautiful. Her light was so intense that he could not look directly at her. When she spoke, her voice filled the entire chamber. We are gathered to render judgment on the human coal who stands before us under the ancient law of seizure. The queen's tone was formal, emotionless. Let those who accuse him speak first. Lord stepped forward, was not surprised. He had known from their conversations that considered him an abomination. The crimes of this human are many, began. He touched a princess of the blood without permission. He performed unsanctioned medical procedures within the sacred healing chamber. He violated the sanctity of royal flesh with metal tools and electrical current. His voice grew louder. But his greatest crime is simply what he is, a human, a member of a violent, primitive species that has no place among civilized peoples. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, kept his face still. The seizure was created for our own kind, continued, for noble who risk their lives to save royalty. It was never meant for aliens. It was certainly never meant for creatures like this. He gestured at with obvious disgust. If we allow this precedent, if we treat this human as anything other than a criminal, we invite chaos. Every primitive species in the galaxy will believe they can touch our royal family without consequence. The human saved the princess's life, someone called from the crowd. Does that count for nothing? He saved her through butchery, shot back. Through violence and metal and electricity, our medicine could have saved her. Our medicine was failing. The voice was clear and musical, and the entire court fell silent. Princess stepped forward from her place among the royal family. Her light was bright, almost defiant. I was there, Lord, I remember. I was dying and our medicine could not reach me. The parasite had dimmed my light. Our elegant techniques could not find purchase. I would have died within minutes if this human had not acted. Then perhaps death was the will of. Do not speak to me of the will of higher powers. His voice cut through words like a blade. I felt death approaching. I felt my light fading. And then I felt this human's hands on my body, his strange tools cutting through my flesh, his alien medicine pulling me back from the darkness. She paused, and her light flickered with memory. It was painful. It was terrifying. It was the most violent thing I have ever experienced, and I am alive because of it. The court erupted in whispers, stood very still, watching the queen. Her expression had not changed. Her eyes had not moved from his face. "The princess speaks from emotion," said. "She is grateful to be alive. That is understandable, but gratitude cannot override law. Gratitude cannot change what this human is." "And what is he?" Queen spoke for the first time since the accusations began. Her voice was soft, but it silenced the entire chamber. "Tell me, Lord, what is this human?" Hesitated. "He is primitive, violent, crude. He is also brave." The queen rose from her throne and began to descend the steps toward. Every eye in the chamber followed her. "He acted knowing that death awaited him. He violated our laws, our customs, our most sacred spaces, all for a girl he had never met, a princess of a species that considers his kind barely above animals." She stopped directly in front of her, light washing over him in waves of heat and brilliance. "Tell me, human, why did you do it?" Looked up at her. His eyes watered from her light, but he did not look away. "Because I could. Because she was dying and I knew how to stop it." "That is not an answer. Many things are possible that we do not do. Why did you risk everything for a stranger?" Thought about the question. He thought about Emma, about the promise he had made to come home. He thought about the princess's fading light, the sound she had made when hope left her. He thought about all the patients he had lost over the years and all the ones he had saved. "Where I come from, that is enough," he said finally. "Knowing how to help and doing nothing, that is the real crime. We do not have time to ask permission. We do not have the luxury of elegant solutions. We just act, and we live with the consequences." The queen studied him for a long moment. Her face was unreadable. "I have ruled this empire for 300 years, she said at last. "I have survived wars and plagues and the death of stars. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen what becomes of peoples who cannot change." She turned to face the court, and her voice rose to fill the chamber. "We have been stagnant for too long. We have relied on our elegance, our traditions, our pride. And we have forgotten something important. Survival is not elegant. Survival is messy and painful, and requires the willingness to do what must be done." She turned back to, "This human acted without permission, without grace, without any of the refinements we value. He cut into my daughter with metal tools and pulled a monster from her brain with his bare hands. By every measure of our civilization, what he did was barbaric." The court held its breath. "And my daughter lives because of it." The queen's voice softened. "I do not release you from seizure, coal of earth. Instead, I elevate it. You will serve the crown not as prisoner but as advisor. You will teach us what you know, your medicine, your science, your strange human way of seeing the world, and in return you will learn what we can offer." The court erupted. Some nobles shouted in outrage. Others cheered. Most simply stared in disbelief, but barely heard any of it. He was looking at Princess, who stood among the chaos with light streaming from her eyes. She was crying, he realized, the cried in light. And through her tears she was smiling. "The galaxy is changing," Queen said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Perhaps it is time we changed with it. This human has shown us something we had forgotten, that sometimes the crude solution is the only one that works, that sometimes survival requires hands willing to get bloody." She placed her hand on shoulder, and her light flowed through him like fire. "Welcome to the court, Cole. I expect you to cause many more problems before we are done." Despite everything, the fear, the exhaustion, the strangeness of it all, found himself smiling. "I will do my best," he said. And somewhere in the crowd, Princess laughed. 6 months passed, and Cole became something that had never existed before, a human with power in the Empire. It did not happen all at once. At first he was simply a curiosity, the strange alien who had saved the princess, kept around as a symbol of the queen's controversial decision. Nobles stared at him in corridors. Servants whispered when he passed. Guards watched his every move. He was tolerated, but he was not trusted. Then the work began. The queen gave a wing of the palace and told him to fill it with purpose. He did not know what she expected, so he did the only thing he knew how to do. He practiced medicine. He set up a small clinic using equipment brought from Earth and supplies borrowed from stores. At first, no one came. Humans treated by impossible, insulting, absurd. But humans were not the only aliens in the empire. There were diplomats from a dozen species, traders and travelers and refugees from across the galaxy. Some of them had medical problems that medicine could not address. And slowly, word spread. The human doctor would see anyone. Worked long hours. He treated a merchant whose digestive system had been damaged by bad food. He helped a diplomat with a joint condition that physicians had never seen. He spent 3 days researching an illness that affected children, eventually finding a treatment that combined human antibiotics with light therapy. The combination worked better than either approach alone. This surprised everyone, including Princess became his partner in these experiments. She visited his clinic every day, watching and asking questions and gradually learning to assist. The Princess of the Empire, working alongside a human doctor, treating alien patients with a mixture of ancient and modern techniques. The court was scandalized. The queen was amused, did not care what anyone thought. "Our medicine is beautiful," she told one evening as they worked together on a new treatment protocol. "But beauty is not always enough. Your medicine is ugly, but it is also flexible. It adapts. It finds a way." She looked at him with something like wonder. "I never knew healing could be like this." "I never knew it could be anything else," admitted. "On Earth, we fight for every life. We do not have time to be elegant. Perhaps that is your greatest strength. You have never had the luxury of perfection, so you have learned to work with imperfection instead." The clinic grew. Human medical teams arrived from Earth, part of the first official exchange program between the species. Physicians joined them, initially skeptical but increasingly curious. Arguments happened daily, about methods, about ethics, about the proper way to treat a patient. But progress happened too. New treatments emerged, combinations that neither species could have developed alone. Not everyone was pleased. Lord led the opposition. He gave speeches in the court about the corruption of values, about the danger of allowing human influence to spread. He gathered allies among the noble houses who feared change. He whispered that the queen had grown old and foolish, that she had been manipulated by an alien who had no right to be there. Ignored him as best he could. He had work to do, lives to save. He did not have time for politics. This was a mistake. The first assassination attempt came in the 3rd month. A servant delivered poisoned food to Chambers. He survived only because arrived early for their evening discussion and noticed something wrong with the smell. The servant confessed under questioning. He had been paid by nobles who wanted the human gone. The second attempt was more direct. 3 masked figures attacked in a corridor, their plasma blades humming with deadly energy. He would have died, but a young guard, one who had been watching work in the clinic, threw herself between them. She took a wound that would have killed a human. She survived because was there to treat her using techniques that physicians did not know. The irony was not lost on anyone. "They will not stop," told him after the second attack. "Lord and his allies see you as a threat to everything they believe in. As long as you are here, as long as you succeed, you prove that their way of thinking is wrong. They cannot allow that." "What should I do? Stop working, go home?" "You could," Slight flickered. "You have done more than anyone expected. You have shown us things we never imagined. No one would blame you for leaving." Thought about Earth, about Emma who was growing up without him, about the safe, familiar world he had left behind. He could go back. He could resume his old life and pretend that none of this had ever happened. But then he thought about the patients he had treated, the lives he had saved, the young guard who had nearly died to protect him, the look in his eyes when she learned something new. "I am not going anywhere," he said. The third month turned into the fourth and the fourth into the fifth. The work continued. The clinic expanded into a full medical center, staffed by humans and working side by side. New treatments emerged almost weekly. The exchange program brought more human scientists, more equipment, more knowledge. And slowly, carefully, the empire began to change. Not everyone changed willingly. Lord's faction grew larger, its rhetoric more extreme. They spoke of purity and tradition and the danger of human contamination. They called a poison in the body of the empire, a disease that had to be cut out. In the sixth month, they stopped talking. Was in his clinic when the news came. A servant rushed in, his light pale with terror, and told him that armed soldiers had seized control of the palace's communication center. That Lord had declared the queen unfit to rule. That a coup was. "Where is the queen?" demanded. "In the throne room with the princess. They are surrounded." Did not hesitate. He grabbed his medical kit, the same one he had used to save 6 months ago, and ran. The corridors were chaos. Guards fought guards, their plasma blades filling the air with heat and light. Servants huddled in corners, their light dimmed by fear. Dodged through the violence, his human body too small and too fast for anyone to stop. He reached the throne room just as Lord was giving his speech. The noble stood before the queen and princess, a blade in his hand, surrounded by soldiers loyal to his cause. "The time has come to end this corruption," was saying, "to restore our empire to its proper glory. The human influence ends today." Did not think, he did not plan, he simply moved. He burst through the crowd of soldiers before they could react, placing himself between and. The noble's blade swung, felt cold metal bite into his side, deep enough to reach bone. He fell. The pain was enormous but distant, as if it belonged to someone else. He looked up and saw his face above him, her light blazing with terror and fury. He saw raising his blade for another strike. He saw loyal guards finally breaking through the rebel lines. He saw his blood, red alien human, spreading across the crystal floor. "Hold on," was saying, her hands on his wound, her light pouring into him. "Hold on, please." He wanted to tell her something important, but darkness was closing in, and he could not remember the words. The last thing he heard before unconsciousness took him was the queen's voice, cold and terrible. "Seize Lord, he will answer for this." Then there was nothing but silence and the slow fading of the light. Woke to light. For a moment he thought he was dead. The brightness surrounded him, warm and golden, pulsing in rhythms that matched his heartbeat. He floated in it, suspended between worlds, feeling nothing but peace. Then the pain arrived, and he knew he was alive. He opened his eyes. He was in the same healing chamber where he had saved 6 months ago. The irony made him want to laugh, but laughing hurt too much. "You are awake." His voice came from somewhere to his left. He turned his head slowly, carefully, and saw her sitting beside his bed. Her light was dim with exhaustion, but her eyes were bright. "How long?" asked. His voice was rough, barely a whisper. 3 days, we were not sure you would survive." Leaned closer, and he saw tracks of dried light on her face, the residue of tears. "You lost so much blood, human blood, we did not know how to replace it. But you figured it out." "Yes, we adapted." A small smile crossed her face. "Your physicians showed us how to synthesize human blood from base components. Our physicians provided the energy to keep your body functioning while the synthesis completed. It was messy, inelegant, very human. And it worked. And it worked." Lay still for a moment, processing everything. He remembered the coup, the blade, the fall. What happened after I? Lord is dead. He tried to fight his way free when the loyal guards came, and he did not survive. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. His allies have been arrested. Some will be executed. Others will be exiled. The coup failed. And the queen? Unharmed, very angry. Smile returned, slightly wider. She has been making speeches about the courage of humans, about how a single alien risked his life to protect her daughter, about how wrong she was to ever doubt the value of human alliance. She paused. You are a hero now, whether you like it or not. Did not feel like a hero. He felt tired and sore and very far from home. But he also felt something else, something warm in his chest that had nothing to do with his injuries. I did not think, he said. When I saw the blade coming toward you, I just moved. I know, that is what makes it mean something. Reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool against his and light flowed from her touch into his body. You saved my life again, even though you did not have to, even though it nearly killed you. It seemed like the right thing to do. It was, it always is with you. Looked at him with an expression he had never seen before. You are a very strange creature, Cole. Sometimes I think I will never understand humans. Sometimes I think I will never understand myself. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside the window, the stellar nursery burned with colors that had no names in human languages. New stars were being born, bright and young and full of potential. The days that followed were busy. Recovered slowly, his human body struggling against the damage Blade had caused. Medicine helped, but it was not designed for his species. Human doctors from the exchange program worked alongside physicians, improvising treatments, adapting techniques, fighting for every bit of progress. It was messy. It was difficult. It was exactly what had been working toward for 6 months. Queen visited him on the 5th day. She came alone, without guards or attendants, and stood beside his bed for a long moment before speaking. You have bled for my daughter twice now, she said at last. Once with your defiance, once with your body. The debt is no longer ours alone. I did not do it for debt, said. I know, that is why it means something. The Queen's light softened. You have been offered a choice, human. Your government has requested your return. They consider you a hero. They want to honor you, to celebrate you, to use your story for political advantage. Felt something twist in his chest. I see. Or you can stay. You can continue your work here, building bridges between our peoples. You can remain at court with whatever title or position you desire. You can be part of what we are building. The Queen paused. The choice is yours. I will not command you either way. Thought about Earth. About Emma, now 13, who had sent him messages every week begging him to come home. About the life he had left behind, the comfortable routine that had once seemed so important. He could go back to all of it. He could be safe. But safety was not what he had come here for, and safety was not what the galaxy needed. I will stay, he said, if you will have me. The Queen's light brightened. I was hoping you would say that. A month later, stood on a balcony overlooking the stellar nursery. His wounds had healed, leaving scars that would never fade. He wore a formal robe of design, modified to fit his smaller human body. He was dressed for a ceremony, the formal signing of an alliance between humanity and the Empire. Found him there, staring at the stars. You could have gone home, she said, stepping up beside him. I know. Why did you stay? Considered the question. He had asked himself the same thing many times over the past weeks. The answer was complicated. It involved duty and hope, and the strange feeling he got whenever smiled at him. But in the end, it came down to something simple. Because this is where I am needed, he said, and where I come from, that is enough. Slight brightened, and though her face was not built for human expressions, could have sworn she was smiling. You are a very strange human, she said. So I have been told. They stood together in silence, watching the stars burn. Below them, the ceremony was beginning. Diplomats and nobles and representatives from a dozen worlds, all gathered to witness the birth of something new. An alliance, a partnership, a future that neither species could build alone. It would not be easy. There would be more resistance, more violence, more people who feared change and hated what represented. He would walk a bridge of thorns for the rest of his life, caught between worlds that did not fully understand each other. But that was the price of being a bridge, and had learned long ago that some things were worth paying for. "Are you ready?" asked. Looked at her, at this strange, beautiful, impossible creature who had somehow become his closest friend. He thought about everything he had lost and everything he had gained. He thought about Emma, who was on her way to visit as part of the first cultural exchange. He thought about the future, uncertain and frightening and full of promise. "No," he said honestly, "but I never am. That has never stopped me before." Laughed, and the sound was like music, like light, like the birth of new stars. "Then let us go," she said. "The galaxy is waiting." Together, they turned from the window and walked toward the future, human, and side by side, building something new from the ruins of what had been. Behind them, the stars continued to burn, indifferent to the small dramas of mortals and empires. But in the space between two species, in the bridge built from blood and hope and stubborn human refusal to give up, something was growing, something that neither race could have imagined alone, something that might, given time, change everything. And Cole, Dr. Accidental Hero, was exactly where he needed to be.